In the golden age of 1980s and 1990s action cinema, few names shone brighter than Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. They were larger than life, men who seemed carved from muscle and myth, blending martial arts mastery with movie star charisma. Audiences saw them as unstoppable heroes. But behind Hollywood's glamorous curtain, two of its toughest stars were locked in a silent, simmering rivalry, one that eventually boiled over at a fateful Miami party. This is the true story, not the tabloid rumors or fan fiction, of what really happened when Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal nearly came to blows. It began not with fists, but with words. By the late 1980s, martial arts films were everywhere. Van Damme's Bloodsport had turned him into an international icon, a symbol of physical beauty, agility, and underdog grit. Seagal, with above the law and hard to kill, offered something different. Stoic intensity, Aikido precision, and a calm that bordered on spiritual detachment. Both men had built their images on discipline and toughness, but beneath that polished Hollywood surface, pride and ego started to clash. In several interviews throughout the early 1990s, Steven Seagal made public comments that raised eyebrows across the martial arts community. He spoke dismissively of others, suggesting that some popular stars were actors, not fighters. In one widely circulated interview with Movieline, Seagal reportedly claimed that Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris, and even Bruce Lee weren't real fighters. Seagal didn't hold back. He presented himself as the authentic martial artist, someone who had trained in Japan, mastered Aikido, and worked in law enforcement. Van Damme, in his eyes, was a gymnast, a movie-made fighter, not the real deal. Those words made their way through Hollywood faster than any roundhouse kick. And for Van Damme, who had spent his youth training rigorously in Shotokan karate and full-contact kickboxing, winning numerous tournaments in Europe before he ever saw a movie camera, the comments strung deeply. For years, Van Damme said nothing publicly. He was focused on his career, Kickboxer, Lionheart, Universal Soldier films that turned him into a global phenomenon. But he didn't forget what had been said. Then came the night when all that quiet resentment almost turned into history. It was 1997 in Miami Beach, at an extravagant party thrown by none other than Sylvester Stallone. Stallone was at the height of his own fame, surrounded by friends, co-stars, and industry giants. The guest list read like an action movie hall of fame. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Madonna, and dozens of other stars mingling in the humid Florida night. And among them, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. What happened that evening has been retold in countless rumors, but only one man has ever given a first-hand account: Sylvester Stallone himself. In a 2008 interview with FHM magazine, Stallone recalled the moment when years of tension finally surfaced. At a party in Miami, Van Damme was tired of Seagal's talk, Stallone said. He went up to him and said, "Come on, man, you've been saying this stuff for years. Let's step outside." Seagal excused himself and walked away. Van Damme followed him to a nightclub later that night, still wanting to settle it, but Seagal wouldn't engage. That quote remains the most reliable and direct account of the encounter. No punches were thrown. No tables were flipped. There was no dramatic movie-style brawl. Just a tense standoff between two men whose reputations had grown too big for one room. Van Damme reportedly challenged Seagal to prove himself. Seagal declined. Some say he left the party entirely. Others claim he went to another club, only to find Van Damme waiting there later that night, still ready, still calm, but determined to face him. The Miami humidity hung heavy. The press didn't catch wind of it that night. There were no viral videos, no witnesses posting online. It was just Hollywood's elite, watching two alpha figures collide, one pushing for a reckoning, the other refusing to take the bait. Years later, when Van Damme was asked about the encounter on the Graham Norton show, he smiled and confirmed that yes, something did happen, but it never turned physical. "I saw Steven Seagal at a party," he said, "and yes, I wanted to show him something, but it didn't happen. Maybe one day, ha." The audience laughed, and so did Van Damme. He didn't carry bitterness, only a touch of humor about what might have been. Seagal, on the other hand, stayed silent. To this day, he has never publicly addressed Stallone's account. Not once. He neither confirmed nor denied what happened. That silence, as always with Seagal, only deepened the mystery. For fans, the story became the stuff of legend. Some embellished it, inventing tales of a chase through Miami or near fights in back alleys. But the truth, supported by actual witnesses, is far more revealing than any fight could be. It showed two men at very different crossroads. Van Damme, for all his fame, was always the dreamer. Born in Belgium as Jean-Claude van Varenberg, he was a shy, skinny kid who fell in love with martial arts to escape bullying. He built his body, his confidence, and eventually his career with discipline and optimism. By the 1990s, he was known not just for his high kicks, but for his honesty, a man who could laugh at himself and admit his mistakes. Seagal, by contrast, carried a darker aura. Born in Michigan, he traveled to Japan and trained seriously in Aikido, something few Westerners had done at the time. He ran a dojo there before returning to the US, where he broke into Hollywood through his martial arts connections. Seagal exuded mystery. He spoke softly, moved slowly, and radiated authority. To many, he was the real deal, a genuine martial artist in a business full of actors. But his habit of publicly dismissing other stars, including Van Damme, Norris, and even legendary stuntmen, made him few friends in the industry. So when the two met in Miami, it wasn't just two men confronting each other, it was two ideologies colliding. Van Damme represented humility, heart, and the idea that anyone, even a bullied kid from Belgium, could rise to greatness through hard work. Seagal embodied discipline, control, and the belief that martial arts were sacred, not for show. Their brief encounter was like lightning. It illuminated their differences for one unforgettable moment. After that night, both men went their separate ways. Van Damme continued to work, though fame took its toll. He battled depression and personal struggles, but slowly rebuilt his life, earning respect again through honesty and self-awareness. Seagal's career also changed. His early films remained classics, but controversies, political statements, and an increasingly guarded lifestyle pushed him away from mainstream Hollywood. Yet through it all, the story of that Miami night never disappeared. It became one of those whispered Hollywood tales that everyone seemed to know, but no one could fully confirm. Over the years, even Stallone would bring it up in jest, saying that Van Damme was ready to knock Seagal into another dimension. But the laughter always came with respect, because everyone knew it could have gone very differently. And maybe that's what makes the story last, because deep down, people don't care who would have won. They care about what it represents, two legends standing at the crossroads of pride and restraint, one man willing to defend his honor, the other perhaps wise enough to walk away. In an industry built on illusion, that single night peeled back the curtain and revealed the men behind the myths. Van Damme, years later, would express genuine admiration for his fellow action stars, including Seagal. In a 2010 interview, he said he'd still love to make a movie with him someday, not out of rivalry, but respect. "We're both older now," he said. "We should have done it then. It would have been great for the fans." And perhaps that's the truest ending to this story, not violence, not victory, but perspective. For fans of a certain generation, those who grew up watching Bloodsport, Hard to Kill, Kickboxer, and Under Siege, this rivalry wasn't just about two men. It was about an era when heroes looked different, when toughness wasn't built in a gym but earned through discipline, and when honor still meant something. Time has humbled both men. Van Damme found peace in family, fitness, and gratitude. Seagal, for all the controversies that followed, remains a figure of fascination, an enigma who refuses to explain himself. And somewhere between them lies a night in Miami that could have changed Hollywood history, but didn't. Maybe that's the real message. Sometimes, walking away is the strongest move of all, because in a world obsessed with proving who's tougher, it takes rare wisdom to realize that some battles aren't worth fighting. The story of Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal endures not because of punches thrown, but because of the ones that never were. It reminds us that even the strongest men wrestle with pride, reputation, and the desire to be respected. And it leaves behind one haunting question, not about who would have won that fight, but about what it means to truly be a warrior, not just on screen, but in life. In the golden